Today we're featuring the 73rd Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Maura Healey. So I know there's about 700 of my closest friends in the room, but I'm Jim Rooney, President and CEO of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce. And as I mentioned, Governor Healey is with us today, a longtime friend of not just me, but the Chamber, a Pinnacle Award winner, and she's joined us as a featured speaker at the Chamber Government Affairs forums throughout the many years of her public service. So we're very grateful for that. And I also, Governor, want to thank your Secretary of Veteran Services, John Santiago, Dr. Santiago, Major Santiago. Some of you may not know that before this meeting, Secretary Santiago was kind enough to meet with the young professionals in our City Awake program, had a private conversation with them about his career journey, about service in government, and giving those young professionals the opportunity to connect with our leaders in government. So, Secretary, thank you for making the time to do that today. In addition to Secretary Santiago, we're joined by a number of Governor Healey's cabinet and senior staff members, including, I have to start with Chief of Staff Kate Cook, an important and difficult job. Kate, there is a recovery group for Chiefs of Staff. I'm the chair, but we'll connect with you on that. A longtime friend of the Chamber as well, Secretary of Executive Office of Health and Human Services, another Pinnacle winner and distinguished Bostonian, Kate Walsh. Kate is here with us. The Secretary of the Executive Office of Economic Development, Yvonne Howe. Yvonne. A very busy guy, and I'm sure we'll hear some things about what's on his plate. Secretary of Housing and Livable Communities, Ed Augustus, is here with us. Secretary of the Executive Office of Technology Services and Security, Jason Snyder. Jason. Undersecretary of the Economic Development Office, Ashley Stobler is here. Ashley. And a friend from his legislative days, now joining the Labor and Workforce Development Cabinet as Undersecretary of Apprenticeship, Work-Based Learning and Policy, Josh Cutler. Assistant Secretary for Employer Engagement and Employment Outcomes, Ken Brown, is with us as well. Ken? And a guy who's had quite a busy career of public service to all of us in the Commonwealth, the Chairman of the MBTA Board of Directors, Tom Glenn. Tom? And I never thought I'd be able to do this, but the interim executive director of the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority, Gloria Larson. Gloria, thanks for taking that role on. We have many former elected leaders with us today, and because of time and the number, I cannot name them, but please, a round of applause for people who have served in public service throughout the years. A few commercial messages. On March 21st, our Government Affairs Forum will feature Speaker of the House Ron Mariano, and the House will be releasing its budget shortly thereafter in early April, so that should be an interesting forum. I also want to call your attention on March 28th, and maybe if you're curious about this, you'll join us. We'll be celebrating the second anniversary of the Massachusetts Apprenticeship Network. This is a professional apprenticeship program that's housed in the Chamber with a lot of collaboration. 2 years now, we've placed over 400 young people in professional apprenticeships that have led to jobs. So if you're thinking about a new way to find people, we talk about labor and it's hard to find people. Think about an apprenticeship program, and if you're all curious about that, join us on March 28th or reach out to us at the Chamber and we'll have a conversation. Yeah, thank you. On May 2nd is our big annual meeting, so knock that on your calendars now. We'll be joined by another intimate gathering of over 1,500 people. And we'll be announcing shortly some of our speakers and honorees for that, so stay tuned for that. It's Small Business of the Year Awards time, so several, I'm sure, Small Business of the Year award winners are in the room with us today. If you have a small business or you know a small business that deserves to be lifted up in some way or has done some great things, give us a call. And let us know this is someone you may want to take a look at. And you can find out more about that and other events by looking at bostonchamber.com. And don't forget to join today's conversation by using the Twitter @GBCC policy. We're almost ready to welcome the governor to the podium, but I do want to express a few thank yous. Comcast for helping bring our government affairs program to a wider audience. And back with us again is the sponsor of these Government Affairs Forum for the rest of the year. I don't know how many years it's been, Mihal, but Bank of America, thank you for your support of all things Chamber, for these Government Affairs Forums, and for being such a civic-minded business in our community, always involved in things going on in Greater Boston. And with that, I'm pleased to turn it over to Mihal Chamberlain, President of Bank of America and Chief Executive Committee member.
That's a transition. That's not going to use. Thanks for the kind introduction, Jim, and good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be back with you all to kick off the Government Affairs Forum and what Jim is our 20th year sponsoring this great series. So thank you for the partnership on that front. So what we love about the Government Affairs Forum is it's a great opportunity to convene policymakers, businesses, and community leaders to hear from our state and city officials, which is so important in the work that all of you do in this room, really to make Massachusetts and Greater Boston a better place to live, work, and raise a family. On behalf of Bank of America and our teammates that call the Commonwealth home, it's my great pleasure to formally introduce the 73rd Governor of Massachusetts, Maura Healey. As Governor, she's committed to making Massachusetts an affordable place to live while growing the state's competitiveness by prioritizing housing, transportation, job training, and childcare. In her first year in office, Governor Healey delivered on key promises to help Massachusetts become a leader in clean energy, save people money, strengthen our workforce, and support our businesses. Before her current role, Governor Healey was elected and re-elected as the Massachusetts Attorney General. As the people's lawyer, she took on issues that impact residents across Massachusetts, including the opioid epidemic, the climate crisis, escalating healthcare costs, and student loan debt, while protecting the right of consumers, workers, students, seniors, immigrants, the LGBTQ community, as well as the disability community. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our Governor, Maura Healey.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, Boston. Good morning, Greater Boston. Mihal, thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you for Bank of America's continued support of this event and this organization. To Jim, I thank you. I thank your team for your leadership, for your partnership. I also really want to thank you for acknowledging and calling out all the members of our team, our administration, which is your team, Commonwealth. But, just listening to the names, I am again struck by a few things. One, really lucky to work with some amazing people. And two, just tremendous gratitude This team is a team of all-stars, and I think I feel really, really lucky, and I think we as a state should feel really, really lucky that the likes of all of them, some new faces, some more experienced faces that have been around in various roles, have decided to come together and support Kim Driscoll and me in the work that we're trying to do in this state. So thank you to our great, great team. Kate Walsh is probably still wondering why the hell she took my call. Thank you. I see many friends in the room. We have a number of elected officials, statewide and local as well. Thank you for your continued partnership and the work that you do. To members, to a person, to a table, as I look out, I see people who partnered with our administration on so many important initiatives just this past year alone, and know that I know we cannot get anything done that is of meaning and consequence to residents, to businesses, to this state without all of us working together. It's a time where we're just coming off the bean pot. I couldn't lose. 2 of my 4 alma maters were in play, both the women and the men's, so that was good. But I'm reminded, as we go through something like the bean pot, where rankings and records, as we know, don't exactly matter. Coming up on March Madness, right? Exciting times. How about the women's game, right? How great is it that women's college basketball is on more, if not more than men's right now? But it's just to say, I am reminded of the power of teamwork and the ability for folks to come together, to dig deep, to be inspired, and to play together and for each other. That is why, and having just come from Washington, D.C., where I was trying to do the work with my governors, with the Biden administration, it was productive. I had a lot of good conversations with a lot of folks on a lot of issues of consequence to Massachusetts and beyond. I am reminded that Massachusetts has punched and will continue to punch above our weight. It's always been the case. Next year, we're going to ring in 250 years, right? Where it all kicked off here in Massachusetts. And we have a lot to draw upon and a lot of experience in what we've been able to do as a state, as a Commonwealth. And so I just wanted to reflect on that and acknowledge all of you this morning for the work that you have done to further that. Thank you, too, for shouting out the apprenticeship program. Our great new Undersecretary of Apprenticeships, Josh Cutler, has come on board. This is something that the Chamber has leaned into. We applaud that. We are here to support that, bringing and finding, developing talent, also bringing opportunity to people and to communities who for far too long have been underrepresented. So it's such a win-win and absolutely where we need to go. I believe that good partners listen. And I heard you. Our administration heard you. A year ago at this very forum, I stood in front of you and shared our plans to make Massachusetts more affordable, more competitive, more equitable. And we followed through. As we know, Massachusetts, we cut taxes for the first time in more than 20 years. $1 billion tax cut that will save money for everyone and gives employers new tools for recruiting talent. Here are some of the items to look for come April. We cut short-term capital gains to bring us closer into alignment with national norms. We cut the estate tax so families can pass on more of their money. We expanded access to apprenticeship tax credits to help more employers create those talent pipelines. We made employer assistance for student loan repayment tax exempt. We expanded commuter rail transit benefits to include regional transit and bike expenses. We tripled funding for HDIP credits, which is important as we incentivize housing development, particularly in our gateway cities. We increased the Earned Income Tax Credit, the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, and the Senior Circuit Breaker Tax Credit. And because the cost of living, we know, hits people with children the hardest, families in Massachusetts are now going to get the most generous child and dependent tax credit in the country. I'm grateful to the legislature, I'm grateful to Jim, I'm grateful to the chamber who advocated for these measures. And together we did more. To upskill our workforce and help employers fill jobs, we created Mass Reconnect. This is about getting 25-year-olds and older back into programming to set them up for jobs that are available and need to be filled today. Do you know what's happened in just the last few months since we instituted that program? We've seen a 44% increase in community college enrollment. It is meaningful. I can't tell you how many people I bump into who tell me that they are back in school and also, earning that degree, earning that certification that's going to get them the job that they want. Also, the poignancy of the stories as they talk to me about their kids, seeing them now back in school and on a path. Talk about measures to break intergenerational poverty, right? This is it. And thank you guys for making that happen. In the fall, we got our transportation system moving in the right direction, okay? New management, new leadership, not for nothing. Hundreds and hundreds of more employees. And, following that and the record year of hiring at the MBTA, we're making progress. We stabilized the childcare sector and developed a plan for universal pre-K that starts with making sure that every 4-year-old in every gateway city has access soon. We competed hard for federal funds, and it has paid off. I told you all we needed intentionality when it comes to leveraging federal dollars. We set up that office, we worked hard on applications across secretariats, we chased it. And as a result, in this first year alone, we brought back $3 billion to Massachusetts. I'm really proud of that. That's $3 billion. That's port upgrades in New Bedford. That's East-West Rail. That's the Cape Cod bridges, and so much more in the pipeline. I'm also really proud that working together as a team with private sector folks from industry, academia, and government, we won national hubs for research. This is what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about Massachusetts, we have the capacity, if we work together, to punch above our weight. Realize what we won, ARPA-H. That is a big deal. Talk about this being the hub of the next generation of life-saving cures and treatments. That's happening now. Think about the recent award for the Microelectronics Hub. Research and development and investment. I mean, and trust me, I love my colleagues. I do, the governors from around this country. And also trust me that everyone is competing hard for those dollars, chasing us. Our team is motivated every day and mindful of that. So up against that tough competition, we have worked really hard to submit what we need to submit to win those awards. And we're going to have more to come. Last week I was with, as I say, a number of folks from the Biden administration, including one of my favorites, our Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo. And we had a meeting with her and members of the semiconductor industry. And the thing that they said was that the biggest obstacle to scaling semiconductor industry here in the United States is workforce. And one of the things that I brought home is that we're on the right track because we're doing the things that help develop that workforce, present that workforce, and more companies are going to come as a result. Focusing on our K-12 schools, to community colleges, to employer partnerships. All these things add up and are where we need to be. The Northeast Microelectronics Hub recently issued its first grant. It supports a workforce development partnership led by MIT and Applied Materials. That's what I'm talking about. That's the formula. We're aligned with the federal government and the needs of this industry. And we've proven that when we work together, when we take on tough challenges, we can score big wins. But if we want to remain a place where I believe we are, which is the best place to work, to live, to raise a family, to run a business, we know we have to do more. We know we have to do more. And I'm counting on you to continue to work with us on doing more. The budget that we filed just a few weeks ago is balanced, it is fiscally responsible, it is forward-looking. We are reining in spending. I can't spend what we don't have. Others do, I guess, but not in the Commonwealth. So it's within our consensus revenue projections, while at the same time making strategic and transformative investments in things like childcare, education, and transportation. Importantly, we've taken care to protect our excellent bond rating. As you know, just this past April, we got an upgrade. We're going to protect that. It also helps us with that bond rating unlock important capital investment opportunities in the fundamentals that will ensure our future success. Now, I want to focus on two critical priorities. You've heard me talk about these priorities before, but they bear repeating. Housing. Housing is the biggest challenge we face. Now, I know in recent days the conversation has focused some on Milton, one particular town. Know this, our administration is going to continue to work with the people of Milton. But I also want to be clear, the MBTA Communities Act is the law, and everyone needs to follow it. I just want to zoom out, though, for a second and reset this conversation a little bit around the full challenge, because it's important that we all understand what is really at stake, because it's not about a particular town, it's not about the state versus a town, it's about the two paths that our future can take. On one path, we could keep going down the road where there simply isn't enough housing. I don't have to tell people in this room about where we're at when it comes to housing. How many people have people living at home who would like to be living elsewhere? How many people have parents who want to downsize but can't afford a home? How many employers out there have trouble landing talent because there just isn't availability of affordable housing anywhere within a reasonable commute time? I don't have to tell you about that. That hurts us. That hurts us as a state. Massachusetts right now, last year, we had the lowest vacancy rate for rental housing in the entire United States, I think 2.8%. A healthy rate is around 6%. And what that means is that a lot of people are fighting over a small number of units. It's the same for home ownership. Single-family home sales in 2023 declined by over 22% from the year before. They're the lowest they've ever been since 2011. That, unfortunately, is the path that we have been on for far too long. But it's never too late to change direction. We cannot afford not to. And that's where we leaned in this year with our filing of the Affordable Homes Act. This is a housing bond bill. Again, the relevance of our strong bond rating that allows us to go out and borrow and make the investments that we need to make. And I don't believe there's a more necessary investment that we need to make than in dealing with the fact that for the last 2 decades, we've been down a couple 100,000 housing units in our state. There's a reason people think about North Carolina or Texas or other places to go. It's housing. I want to end that. That act, remember, it's $4 billion. It would be the biggest housing investment the state's ever made. It would create new tax credits to increase housing production. It would give communities tools to develop housing where they need it, and it would bring down costs for everyone. This is the solution that we need to overcome decades of inertia and inaction. Making housing more affordable unlocks a better quality of life for our families and removes the biggest barrier holding back economic growth and development in our state. So we are going to keep working at this every day to get it over the finish line, and I'm asking for your help. We need help at the state level. We also need help at the local level, as we've seen. All of you, except Brian, he's up in New Hampshire. You should come down. It's good. All of you live in one of our 351 cities or towns. You're all leaders in your community. Whether you're involved in schools or coaching your kids' sports, people look to you. They listen to you. So as we go forward, know that the destiny of this state and the economic well-being, the future of the state, really rides on any number of decisions made by 351 cities and towns. Our destiny is tied to one another. So I think what's been missing from the conversation for far too long is the opportunity that housing brings. It's an opportunity for a community. It's good for your community. It's good for your neighborhood. It means homes for teachers and nurses and firefighters and lab workers. It means backyard cottages where seniors can downsize and stay in their community. Homes near transit for better commutes and less traffic. It means customers for small businesses and workers for regional employers. So I hope that everyone in this room is willing to engage, if you're not engaged already, by talking to your neighbors, talking to your colleagues, helping to make sure that everyone understands that the future of our state depends on how many new homes we can build. Not just somewhere else, but in your town, in your community, okay? Because I don't want anything pushing people away from Massachusetts. I don't want anything holding back the incredible potential of our state. We lead the world in education, science, medicine, finance. We set a standard for quality of life and respect for human rights. These are the ingredients of success in the 21st century. But if there's one thing above all others that could derail us, it's complacency. The world changes fast, as we've seen in just a period of short time with climate change, with a pandemic, with more global conflict. We're at an inflection point, and we need to take action or we risk falling behind. We have to shore up our foundations with things like housing and transportation. We have to attract and develop talent to fuel growing industries and bring opportunity to all of our residents. We have to protect and lengthen our lead in the innovation sectors where we are winning and catalyze new leadership in areas where we have untapped potential. And finally, we have to make it easier for every kind of business in our state. Now, these are the strategies, if they sound familiar, they're the strategies that many of you helped us work on in developing our economic development plan that we released just a few months ago. It was built by Secretary Yvonne Howe and her team through her extensive statewide engagement with diverse business leaders, community and labor advocates, as well as state and local officials. And this week, we will hopefully be proud. We will be proud. Hopefully it'll happen this week. We're definitely going to be proud because Yvonne and the team put a lot of work into it, and it incorporates a lot of great stuff that we took in from all of you. It's going to be an economic development bill. It's going to be a bond bill that provides the resources to bring this great plan to life. Through capital investments, tax credits, and policy tools, this bill will position Massachusetts for sustained growth and shared prosperity. It's going to advance every sector of our economy in every region of our state. It supports small business, rural development, coastal development. It expands workforce training, permitting reform, broadband expansion, and transformative public-private partnerships. I'll give you a few highlights in advance. First, we're going to reauthorize life sciences for another 10 years. Since 2008, we know how important this initiative has been in creating so many jobs and helping us leverage more than $6 billion in private investment. I'm really proud of the fact that Massachusetts, we're home to 18 of the 20 largest life science companies in the entire world. We're going to go chase those other two, but 18 of the 20 right here in Massachusetts. Who can say that? When people around the world turn on the news, they hear about life-saving medicine and discoveries pioneered right here in our state, whether it's Moderna's COVID vaccine or Vertex's therapy for sickle cell disease, so much more. So many times, it's coming from Massachusetts. We've made it a priority to leverage this success. Look, there's a reason that last week, First Lady Jill Biden came to Cambridge to announce a $100 million federal investment in women's health. That funding, you see, comes through ARPA-H, which is the Catalyst Hub that we won. So just to bring it back to Massachusetts, going after that last year with everything we had, you see, is already paying dividends. So it is absolutely the right time now to launch a new decade of Massachusetts leadership in life sciences. This investment will help our entrepreneurs stay here and grow their ideas into companies. It'll help more companies develop their manufacturing footprint here so we can create a wide range of good jobs. It will create pathways into those jobs for students and workers from underrepresented backgrounds. We'll develop new areas of focus as well. For example, in addition to funding discoveries, we can fund collaboration across the healthcare and innovation ecosystem to improve patient outcomes. We can fund progress in health equity, which is in line with our values and addresses deep national needs. We can stay the global leader in healing the world and create a new generation of opportunity in our economy. We're not going to stop with life sciences, though. Our next big play, and what we bring forward in this bill, is a transformative public-private partnership model to make Massachusetts the global hub of climate tech. We will make it happen here. We are leading in Massachusetts, as we always have, on fighting climate change. We're a leader in the technologies that will ultimately help us win this fight, not just for our country, but for the world. Just think about it. The stuff that people are doing this morning as we're sitting here enjoying this lovely breakfast with one another, just within miles of here, we have people who are working on fusion energy, on carbon-free cement for the building industry, on batteries for EVs, on solar and offshore wind. That stuff's happening right here, folks. In Massachusetts, we're going to solve climate change through innovation, because that's what we do here. So our bill is going to fund a 10-year climate tech initiative to make Massachusetts the global innovation lab for the clean energy revolution. It will... Some of you may have seen the Globe this morning, the front page that, the poor guy, his home just devastated out in Leominster, right? There's no relief. There's nothing in the FEMA system that works. Cities and towns don't have enough money for that kind of work right now. We put forward some ideas, my administration has, but at the end of the day, let's remember, this is climate. This is climate, and we're seeing it in community all around this state. But we're going to come together as a state and work to provide the solution, not just for Massachusetts, not just for this country, but for the world when it comes to the technologies that are going to help address this. This is what this initiative is going to do. Leverage the research and development happening at our universities, providing startups with resources and facilities that they need to stay and grow, scaling up manufacturing and workforce development partnerships to fill those jobs, lengthening our lead in offshore wind. Climate tech companies not only generate their ideas here, but stay, grow, and develop their manufacturing here. That's the goal of this. Finally, our bill is going to address what may be the most transformative emerging technology, one that I know all of you are grappling with in different ways. That's artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. This month, we appointed a strategic task force, an AI strategic task force of technology leaders. In 6 months, I have asked them to send to my desk recommendations for how we can be an effective, responsible leader in the implementation of AI. We're going to focus on how Massachusetts residents and businesses can benefit. For example, can AI help our hospitals better diagnose and treat patients? Can it help us predict where the impacts of climate change will appear next? Can it help strengthen cybersecurity for both organizations and public safety? And so much more. Now, we've already been engaged in this work. We've been in a partnership with Northeastern University. Students there are helping to develop AI solutions to improve our government services, helping our Mass Health call center better navigate documents to help members, helping our highway division engineers manage project documentation, helping T-riders with disabilities more easily access services, and so much more. But just an example of something that we're already undertaking. In Massachusetts, we'll make AI a powerful tool for solving problems and improving people's lives. Our bill creates and funds an applied AI hub. See, we know AI, and there's some other states that have already sort of helped really lead on developing it. You know what I want to own? I want us to own applied AI. Applied AI. And we have the tools, the people, to do just that. It means research, collaboration, and workforce solutions that give our businesses and workers a competitive advantage. We can make AI a job creator here in Massachusetts, not a job destroyer. And we can make sure that Massachusetts businesses, consumers, and workers are leading and benefiting from this technology. So I am really excited about all 3 of these initiatives that you'll hear more about in the coming days. There's also a lot more in this legislation. It re-ups important programs that support economic growth, from MassWorks infrastructure grants to Rural Development Fund grants to the Seaport Economic Council. It proposes new funding for robotics and advanced manufacturing. It invests in our cultural and creative sectors to help grow our tourism sector and capitalize on the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. And it makes it easier, simply put, to do business in Massachusetts by creating and developing a front door for business of all sizes, one website where you can go in and engage, and you don't have to engage with multiple agencies on multiple websites. Helping with things like finding space, getting permits, accessing capital, hiring workers. So whether you're an entrepreneur or a much larger business, we want Massachusetts to be an easy place for you to do business. This economic development bill will prime Massachusetts for sustained leadership in an innovative, mission-oriented, high-growth economy. And I'm looking forward to working with you all to advance it. And I am also looking forward to my favorite part of the show, where Jim gets to ask me a bunch of questions. But thank you all for your continued partnership. Let's go out and have a great year, Massachusetts. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So, Governor, I think that both your remarks and my questions were AI generated because they are very similar in subject matter. But I did want to begin by acknowledging you started by making the point that you listened, and I have to underscore that because you may recall that I think even before you were sworn in, you met with the leadership of the Chamber, and we talked about competitiveness and tax policy and issues on the mind of the business community, and you followed through with the tax legislation, and the Chamber indeed did lead the business community in that effort. So thank you to yourself, your team, the legislature on that. You mentioned that there's more to do. And I can't go into a meeting with business leaders without this issue of competitiveness coming up. It comes up over and over again, and there's a lot of dimensions to it. You mentioned
many of them. But, you know, the business friendliness issue keeps coming up. Is it a business-friendly state with respect to regulation, tax policy, the ability to get things done? And you said you want to do that. Just last week, there was a U.S. Chamber report put out that said that Massachusetts ranks 47th in the number of startup companies per capita in the country. So people are choosing to start their company someplace else. You hit on a lot of issues important to the business community. What about this issue of business friendliness and that decision, where do I want to start my company?
Well, you know, Jim, this is something that I've been focused on since I started running for this job, and it's why I announced at the outset that we were going to make Massachusetts more competitive for business. And, you know, we have been chasing that every day. Obviously, you know, the tax package was part of that. The investments that we continue to make in workforce, in education. I mean, so much about competitiveness is you can have grand plans, and that's something I took away, too, from last week. You need workers, too. And, you know, our investments there, whether it's through apprenticeship or other things, to just supply the talent and the workforce to help businesses succeed. Look, I want to do everything I can to make it as attractive as we can be for businesses to start here, to grow here. In life sciences, we're doing something that we haven't done before. There's an intentional and targeted investment in young entrepreneurs because we want them not, you know, starting up things and thinking through things here and then moving. We want them staying here. And I know that Secretary Howe, I know myself, others have had a lot of conversations with young entrepreneurs about what they need to see from government in order to stay here. And that's why you'll see in the bill particular focus there. I mentioned housing. You know, look at these guys. We got guys in the back of the room. We got our servers working here today. We got to make sure that they have a place to live. We got to make sure that people, you know, and employers are able to similarly house their talent and recruit talent. And that's one thing that holds us back. I will do everything in my power, and my team will continue to stay engaged with all of you on what we can do to make Massachusetts as competitive as possible. I also want to defend our state, okay? Again, having come back from spending time with colleagues, we've benefited in this state from steady leadership, okay? Steady leadership, particularly over the last 8 years and right now. That matters. It also matters that people, you know, when you come to this state and you're an employer, yeah, we got to work on driving down housing costs. We got to work on driving down the costs of energy, right? Which is why we're making a play for everything. Any and all energy sources, right? Why we're also working regionally. We convened with all Northeast governors, led by our own Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Rebecca Tepper, because we're looking to work regionally on all of this to bring as much energy in, to modernize the grid, to get the transmission built out, you know, which really extends across, of course, state boundaries. We got to do those things, Jim, but let's remember, you do business in this state, you put people to work in this state, they're going to have access to high-quality health care. They're going to have access to reproductive health care if they need it. They're going to have access to IVF treatments. They're going to have their vote protected and their voice heard. If you got an LGBT kid, that kid's going to be safe and protected in school. You know, we're a state that cares about climate, that cares about combating health, air pollution, water pollution. These things matter, okay? And so I just, you know, I continue to talk about that because it's also an important part of the mix. Not to say we don't need to do more. Of course we need to do more, right? And we're going to get after it every day. Our business front door, that's part of it, okay? I know every governor stands before you and says we're going to deal with permitting and yada, yada, yada. Understand though, folks, part of that, it's not just the state. I talked to you earlier about getting engaged in local community. Every community is responsible for solving the housing challenge. A lot of the permitting stuff is local. So get engaged there, right? Run for your zoning or planning board in your spare time. All these things working together, we can improve our ranking, no doubt. But while I appreciate the U.S. Chamber of Commerce position, they don't always support mine. Although we're closing that gap. It's something we're going to continue to work on.
Thank you. I do want to thank you and applaud the urgency with which you're addressing the housing issue. And on the bond bill, Secretary Augustus knows we have a couple of issues, but by and large, we're very supportive of what that bill does. I've told him that in particular, bringing back some of the public housing that has lain dormant for years is almost criminal that has happened, and the focus on bringing that back. I was intrigued as you were talking about the focus, and you brought it up again with the community level engagement, the cities and towns and so forth, and the Milton experience. And I'm wondering if there isn't, given that the need for a strategy focused on the cities and towns, if there isn't something that is less than a one-size-fits-all approach and more of a flexible approach that enables the cities and towns to maybe put forward how they would intend to deal with it, like a Milton situation.
Well, as I said, with respect to the M-Town, we continue to be in engagement, providing and have provided technical assistance, and to be a thought partner, okay? So, obviously there's a carrot and a stick with all of this. I think that what the legislature passed, what Governor Baker signed into law, the MBTA Communities Act, is a very good policy matter, something absolutely necessary for our state that we need to adhere to. Let me also remind folks that law just required zoning, a sketching out of zoning. Communities would still have autonomy and authority in terms of how things would actually get developed and planned. So nobody's coming in to Bigfoot any city or town. I grew up in a town of 1,300 people, okay? And it's now grown to 2,200 people. But it's just to say, we're sensitive to that. So we'll continue to stay at the table and engage with cities and towns. I think the law, as it's written, affords that flexibility. It does require new engagement and a thought partner from the state, which we are, on how to go out and actually get that done. Because the goal is not just to draft up zoning plans. The goal is to actually deal with the fact that we're a couple 100,000 housing units short in this state.
You touched on transportation, but I have to dig a little deeper. Another issue that I'm pleased that you've embraced the urgency around our mobility issues at large, not just the T and public transportation, but broader mobility issues. You recently established the Transportation Funding Task Force that will have its first meeting this week. Talk about creating that, and what you hope to hear from that task force.
Well, look, in order for us to have the kind of transit system that our residents, that our employers need, we need to make those investments. We know that for far too long the T has not only been mismanaged, it's also been underinvested in. And we have the benefit of some new revenues in that space, obviously, which we are seeking to apply in our proposed budget. But beyond that, we've got to, this is an area, the numbers are huge. This is an area where I need to have the best team on the field in terms of coming up with the solutions to deal with the financing of the T. And that's why I set about to form this transportation task force. I've asked for folks to deliver a report to me by December on where we need to go, how we're going to address the financing needs of transportation. It's a blue ribbon commission, including the appointment of a person from the chamber here, along with others, right? Because we want to bring together the best and the brightest, everyone who's got a stake in this, and I need your help in thinking through and making recommendations to me about what it is we need to do that we haven't done for far too long, or maybe ever. We need to do that now. So that's what's going on there. As we continue to do the work of addressing slow zones and making needed changes that need to be made. And I know the teams are working very, very hard. I know General Manager Ng is working very, very hard, and we've seen some progress. I am mindful every day of delays or problems people encounter. I am. But I also know that I think we've got the right team on the field when it comes to operations now and leadership at the T.
Yeah, I would just say if you're not following the work of Filling, he was a terrific appointment. He's focused on all the right areas, and there's a lot of work to do to deal with the existing issues on the T, but he's focused right where he needs to be. Thanks for the update on the economic development bill, particularly with respect to the reauthorization of the life sciences initiative. I'm going to try to get a little more out of you on that. You know, as you think about it, in 18 of the 20 largest companies in the world being here, largely doing research, development, lab work, maybe the opportunity is in biomanufacturing. I'm the Greater Boston Chamber, but I care about the economic development of the entire state, and it just seems like other portions of the state are poised to compete in that space. Is there some focus on maybe gaining traction on biomanufacturing in there?
Oh, big time. And I'll just note, you know, Worcester right now, Worcester is the 15th largest life sciences hub in the country. It's growing leaps and bounds. Just one example. I think that, you know, what I like about this new life sciences commitment and initiative is that it is different, it is new, and it meets the moment that we're in. I talked about investments for entrepreneurs because we want to keep people here. We want them actually able to grow operations and businesses here. It's also got a significant focus on the lab to fab model because, you know, when you talk to folks, they want the proximity of manufacturing with research. And we've got space, we've got capacity, and that's something that we're really looking to support and incent that makes us, that distinguishes us from other places in the country, thereby making us more attractive for people to come and do business. So that's a little bit more of what, you know, you'll see, and directionally we get how important that is. The same could be true for climate tech, which is why, you know, I also mentioned that. But I think that's the lab to fab model, the focus on manufacturing. Secretary Howe and her team have been out around the entire state, exploring sites, looking at opportunities, looking at partnerships, having conversations, and I've had conversations with some of our bigs about the opportunities that exist outside of Greater Boston. And so more on that, but we're really looking forward to what this means for the state.
Just a quick follow-up on the energy and climate issues. The state has ambitious goals in that space, but it seems in order to meet some of those goals with respect to electrification in particular, dealing with the siting of transmission lines and infrastructure necessary is the big hurdle in getting all that work done. You formed a commission to look at this. Any updates on the work, and what are you hoping to get out of that as well?
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, we can put windmills out in the water, but if we can't get that energy to businesses and to residents, what good is that? So, you know, this is why Secretary Tepper took the initiative to put somebody in charge of working regionally with other states and another person in charge of working directly with the federal government. I met with Department of Energy Under Secretary Turk on Friday with Rebecca when I was there to talk specifically about how federal grant funding through DOE can be used and deployed to grow a variety of energy sources here for our state. We also convened, though, governors regionally, because at the end of the day, we need to work together on all of this. And we need to explore all energy source options, right? I talk a lot about, look, I'm big on wind. We are big on wind because this is the now and this is the future. Huge, exciting opportunities. 30,000 homes right now being energized by wind that's coming through the Vineyard Wind Project, and that's just going to grow exponentially. We also have the ports in New Bedford and now in Salem, where huge economic growth opportunities there. But it's about hydro, it's about solar, it's about a whole bunch of things that we need to do. So, you know, I think it just requires continued pushing, us working together. It is, you know, what is unfortunate, what I don't want to see is we do all the work, we have the policy, we get things lined up, we get the developers, we get the investors, and then when we want to put an absolutely necessary substation on shore, people come out. The same people who purport to care about addressing climate change. People, this is the way through it, okay? We'll work with you, we'll engage with community, but, this gets back to the little bit of, somebody else's community, somebody else's responsibility. No, folks, this is the way we get there. It's not sexy, it's not harmful. I'm concerned about some of the misinformation campaigns that I've seen out there. Back in a prior life, I sued Exxon, right? And part of that was, just as it was in suing Purdue, was to expose, the sham and what people were doing. And Exxon pummeled the crap out of me, you may remember, on the pages of the Wall Street Journal and everywhere in between. And some of what I see, including, some of the efforts to undermine electric vehicles, for example, some of the efforts to, I can't prove this yet, foment some of the opposition around the siting of necessary infrastructure, including substations for offshore wind coming onshore. I just question, and I think we need to really push back at some of what is at play there and what is going on in the fossil fuel industry's last gasp, effort to do all they can to snuff out these industries, which are where we need to be. Look at Europe. We're behind. This country is behind. The solutions are clear, but we're behind. And I just, again, ask for, get on your local zoning or planning board and have those conversations. You'll make a better argument than I will, but we need you.
Well, Exxon, she's... Exxon, she's still standing.
I don't know about Rex Tillerson. He was on the pot when he got that call from the president, as I remember, and we
have our
sent him a
call to
subpoena a few
action.
weeks
Get on
later.
your community planning boards and zoning. I do have one final planted question from my colleague Jay Ash. He wants to know, how many games will the Red Sox win and will they make the playoffs?
Of course they're going to make the playoffs. It's going to be a great year. I'm feeling, how can you not be optimistic, right? It's like old times, Red Sox Nation, remember? Remember when we didn't used to win pennants and titles? It's just like rekindle that. Rekindle, I'm excited for the Sox. I'm really excited for the Celtics. I think they got the right pieces. Excited about looking ahead to the fall and, new coach, new players, got a draft pick that's good coming. We'll see. Do you do the quarterback? Do you do the best player? What do you do? So much to talk about. And the Bruins, too. And let me just put a plug in. Professional women's hockey. Okay? Boston is home. We've got professional women's hockey. We've got professional women's football. It's won like 6-7 Super Bowls in a row. I'm always going to make the plug for a pro women's hoops team. But there's so much that's happening and that is good. And, people can make fun of us from being sports crazy, but I think it's an important part of who we are and what makes us great. I told Governor Maura Healey when I was with her at my meeting. She's a Kansas governor, but she's a huge Chiefs fan, obviously. I told her not to get too excited because you ain't done nothing yet. So let's just see.
Well, memo to self, always ask Governor Healey a sports question. Governor, thank you for sharing your time with us today, for your insights, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Jim. Thank you to the Chamber.